Welcome to Chapter 10, Public Opinion and Political Socialization. I'm Professor Elix, Professor of Political Science at Langston University, and I'm happy that you all are here today. Chapter 10, Public Opinion and Political Socialization, is basically the bare bones start of political science. What we have covered from chapters 1 through 9 is the basic understanding of how the Constitution was created, or basic constitutional history, what federalism, which is the government of the Constitution, the system in which we created from it. Also, understanding how federalism works. Then we understood civil liberties, the protection in the Constitution that we have from the government. Civil rights, our basic right to participate in society and politics, not only on the federal but state level. We learned about the US Congress, the presidency, the judicial branch, and under the executive branch or the presidency, the bureaucracy that actually does or puts in place the policies of the executive branch that has been given authority through Congress. But understand that all the independent branches of government, Congress, the executive, and judicial, all create policy and all find ways to enforce their policies independent of each other. But now, since we understand all of this and we see how they're put together, now we must understand how public policy or public opinion or political socialization of the masses institute or make all of this work. Remember, we are a republic. And in order for a republic to work, we must elect representatives who will sit in Congress. We elect presidents through the electoral college, not directly, indirectly through the electoral college. And presidents appoint and the Senate approves the judiciary. But your opinion as a regular citizen matters. The socialization, how you interact with each other politically, matters. Because your opinion is expressed every time you vote. When you vote for a certain representative in Congress, if you vote during the presidential election, we choose electors for president. And with choosing the electors for president, you're also given a type of opinion of what type of Supreme Court you want. But it also goes into the next level of federalism. All this occurs again on the state level, as well as the local level with your local officials, your school boards, and private organizations or governments, such as homeowners associations. So let's get started. Now, what we do here is we're trying to determine how public opinion is developed. In order to see or get a feel of how the public is feeling about their government, we need this information to not only understand how the public chooses a representative or president, but we would like to know how the public feels at a certain time during a certain event. But not only political scientists want this information, politicians want this information. Corporate people want this information. Interest groups want this information, because this gives you an idea of how the public feels about a certain group or a certain policy or anything that's going on in America. So what we do is we choose political polls to find out. And in order to use political polls, they have to be designed in a certain way in order to get the closest possible opinion, or the closest possible accurate opinion of society. So some of the parts of an opinion poll is what we have here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to share my screen and go to the PowerPoint slides. And as many of you who have followed this, you know, I don't like the PowerPoint slides. It seems like it boxes me in. But for the sake of these videos, it's best to follow this and give you an understanding based on the book of how this works. And when we get in class face to face, I can elaborate more. So let me share my screen. And let me pop this up here. All right, so sharing my screen now. Now, political polls, like I said earlier, are used to get the political opinion of the public. But you must find a way to accurately receive that opinion through your polls. So what we have to do is look through designing a survey. A survey is simply what we're going to ask a certain group or many groups to get their public opinion. We need to select a sample. A sample is a group of people, a certain amount of people that we must take a poll in order to get an accurate number. We must contact respondents, analyze data, and determine what the shortcomings of our poll may be. So let's get started. First, selecting the sample. Now, if we want to conduct a poll, let's just put up any questions. And for the sake that I teach at a HBCU, let's say we made a poll of, do you think Black Lives Matter is effective? Okay, do you think Black Lives Matter is effective? Let's see, let's do this. Do you think Black Lives Matter is effective on criminal justice reform or towards criminal justice reform? Okay, with that question, with that sample, with that survey, we must choose the population in which we want to focus this. So let's just do this. Let's say we want to choose a specific population in urban areas and suburban areas and rural areas, just a cross section of those. Well, what we will do is we will run a random sample of people in each of those areas. Just go out and randomly sample people. So we'll know which type of population we want to get a good read from. And in order to do this, we of course have to have a large number or at least a significant number of people in order to get a decently accurate sample. Now, in a stratified sampling, we just simply not necessarily just randomly go out of people after people. We layer this. We go to the same areas, urban, suburban, rural, but we stratify the sample. We stratify it by ethnicity, race, gender, however we want to do it. And then we, in those individual groups, we randomly sample people up to a certain number. And with all of these different forms of sampling, we'll get a good idea of what the general public is thinking. Now, we may conduct a poll or contact these respondents through telephone polls, which we call, and which many of you know during elections. We hear these people through exit polls, basically people leaving the polls and they do another polls, or through internet polls, either scientific or very scientific. Let's see. Then we analyze the data. What we do is we may pay special attention to different groups, be it men versus women, age, population, or political ideology. Political ideology means if they're conservative, or if they're liberal, or if they're in between, or something further out. And then we report on the data. We report on the data through different documents of just straight reporting of what we found on the data, or how it correlates to a certain amount of research that we're doing. Now, some of the shortcomings of polling is this: a survey error. You may have a margin of error or a sampling error. A margin of error is just simply the amount or the percentage may be off depending upon the group we're sampling. You may see on some polls that there may be 2-3% margin of error. So say if you see a poll that 54% believes that Joe Biden is a good president, then at the same time, you will see 46% believe that he's a bad president. Now, if there's a margin of error of about 3%, you either add or subtract either way to get a more accurate understanding of how your poll went. A sampling error means that we may not have sampled enough people or received enough responses from people. And when a sampling group is so small, it does not give you more of an idea of what people are thinking. The larger the sample, the better picture that we get. But sometimes, just due to restrictions, be it financial or time, we have to narrow a sample down. So a sampling of maybe 10,000 respondents to a poll is very good, especially if it's in a certain area in which we want to get that information. But a sampling of 10,000 people for a survey across the United States is very limiting. But a sample maybe of 100,000 respondents, 200, maybe 300,000 respondents throughout the United States may be great. Now, limited response options, yes, no, or what they call the feeling thermometer. When you limit a person to a certain response, yes, no, do you approve or disapprove, that does not necessarily give you a type of idea of what people are thinking. Yes, some people may say, yes, I think Joe Biden is doing a good job. But then you start with other questions that, what do you think what do you think he's doing on the economy? I think he's doing a great job. What do you think he's doing on police reform and minority relations? I think he's doing a great job. What do you think he's doing on reaching out to conservatives and Republicans? Oh, I think he's doing a crappy job. And seeing, this is where when you start tailoring the questions more specific ways, you get better answers and a clearer picture. Lack of information. Well, simply that your questions that you may have submitted or the people who respond to your poll was less, or your poll does not have enough information in it for people to properly respond. That's a shortcoming. Difficulty measuring intensity. Just simply understanding your questions or how you created the survey does not reflect the intensity of the emotion of the people that you're trying to survey. The lack of interest in political issues. A lot of people that would be helpful in a poll may not take a poll that is political in nature because they don't care about politics, or they're simply just frustrated with politics that they run away. Now, let's go into political ideology. This is something that is totally different than in political socialization. Political ideology has two parts. You have finding your political ideology and problems with ideological labels. Political ideology is simply how you see things in your life, be it conservative, liberal, or what have you. My political ideology is conservative to moderate. Yeah, that seems confusing, but my political ideology is conservative to moderate. Now, what that means is that on some issues, I'm very conservative. And on other issues, I'm not necessarily liberal, but I'm more in between. And you'll notice that most Americans fall in this label. So under ideology, we have definition of conservatives. Most conservatives prefer limited government, favor state and local control, and believe that the private sector should handle social problems. Some of this fits me. Social conservatives believe that government should regulate sexual and social behavior. I believe in this just to a very little point. Liberals believe that government should protect individuals from economic disadvantage and correct past injustices. I do believe in this somewhat, but I have a problem with protecting people from economic disadvantage just simply because people have done things stupid. There are some things that government can do economically to help not only the disadvantaged, but to help the overall economy. I believe the federal government should make sure that past injustices are settled, that we can move forward. But I don't believe that the government can solve all of that. Individuals have to solve a lot of this. Liberals oppose regulation of the private behavior and oppose infringement on civil rights and civil liberties. I do agree with this. I oppose regulation of private behavior to a point. I believe that with liberty, you should be allowed to do anything you want that does not infringe on the rights of others. So I do kind of oppose regulation of private behavior to a point. I oppose infringement on civil rights and civil liberties. I agree. I don't like when the government impose upon civil rights and civil liberties. But you will find a lot of conservatives that feel the same way. Moderates, centrist view on most issues. And I fit mostly in that part right there, moderate to conservative or conservative to moderate, however you want to say. Problems with ideological labels. Many people don't fit into one ideology. That is correct. Many people do not fit into one ideology. You may have a person who's a raging liberal on many cases, but is a hardcore conservative on others. That would be considered more of a moderate, right? But it doesn't fit always. A status for government interference means they don't want anybody messing around. I mean, they want government messing around, and libertarians are against governmental interference no matter what. Libertarians are just, there's two things, libertarians and Libertarian Party. Now, the Libertarian Party is a partisan thing, but a libertarian attitude is against total government interference. They're almost to the point of believing in anarchy. They believe government should exist, there should be police powers, but it's very little. And many of things with libertarians I agree, but quite a few things I can't agree. Now, forming political opinions. Political opinions start early in your life. Let's look at it from this way. Your ideology determines your political opinion. And you receive your first dose of ideology from your parents. Many of you out there don't believe this. Many of you out there look at your parents sometimes as fools, that they don't know what in the world that they're talking about. But in reality, many of you have already internalized everything that your parents have told you, your peers have told you when you're growing up, and what you've learned in school. And that's part of your ideology. Your demographic characteristics also create your ideology and political opinion. If your ethnicity is Black, Euro-American, Asian American, Hispanic, Native, or other groups, who you are a part of will determine not only your ideology, but your political opinion. The mass media. What you see in the media every day determines your ideology and opinion. Because if you receive most of your information from the news, you're thinking that there might be a crime spree going on every damn day. But in reality, that may not be the case. Cues from leaders and opinion makers. Leaders and opinion makers that you admire, people that your family have followed throughout their lives and believe that are credible to a point, even though you totally disagree with them, you still listen to them, and it still becomes a part of you to a point. And your political knowledge. Your political knowledge is what you usually receive from your family, your peers, and your schools. And it is what you gather from mass media, cues from leaders, and opinion makers. And it's also, all of this is based upon how your demographic characteristics is seen upon it in society. And if you have less political knowledge of how things work, you may think or believe your ideology may be that everything is stacked against you. Or if your political knowledge is developed and you have a good understanding of government and how it really works, you feel assured that, hey, I can go out and change things. But it is up to you. It is up to you. Now, what we saw before, demographic characteristics, your gender, your race, ethnicity, age, and religion. I don't use race because there are not races. Race is a social construct. That's my opinion. You can believe it or not. but that's what I'm putting in there. Race is a social construct that is mostly used as more of a class structure or a caste structure. In the United States, we don't have races. We have ethnicities. There are Black ethnicities in the United States. Let's think about this. And I use this example simply because I'm part of an HBCU. In the United States, we have people who were born and whose lineage go all the way back to when America was created. Those are Black Americans. And we also have people who were born here who are maybe a generation or two new in this country. They are also Black Americans. And we have people who are recently immigrated to the United States and became citizens, and those are Black Americans. But if we were to break those down, you have the people who totally different culture who have been here through their entire lineage in the United States. Their culture, their understanding, their beliefs are of this country, and that is an ethnic group. You have people who have only been here in this country maybe 1, 2, 3 generations. And wherever they migrated from, that's the cultural identity that they connect to. And that's a different ethnicity. And then you have people who just recently immigrated over to the United States and became citizens. And wherever they immigrated from, that is their ethnicity. So as Black Americans alone, you can count us all as an ethnic group. Or you can count us as a pluralistic ethnic group with many sub-ethnic groups involved. And if we look at whites, we're looking at people who mostly immigrated from Europe, from Eastern, Southern, Northern Europe, and you can break them up from the different cultural groups in which they come from. We look at Native Americans. They're not a racial group. They're a pluralistic ethnic group because they're made of different ethnic groups or tribes. You look at Asians, same way. And you look at any other people who have immigrated to the United States. So in order to categorize them, which happened 400 years ago, but right now in the United States, we use this term race to categorize them. And race is nothing but a social construct in order to label groups to make it easier on whoever's labeling those groups. We are a pluralistic society made of multiple ethnic groups. We are part of one race, the human race. So that's my philosophy. Demographic characteristics: age, religion. Religion makes up a huge demographic characteristic. Family influence, peers are influential, and political socialization in your school. How politics is taught in your school, the type of groups you belong to in your school and among your peers is part of political socialization and is part of your ideology. In the mass media, traditional news sources, the rise of non-traditional news media on television and online sources, and cable and internet. And cues from your leaders or opinion makers. Political leaders use media to influence the public. President uses media as a bully pulpit. What's missing here are influencers online, people who you connect to. for some of you, you may watch hygiene videos or beauty videos or extreme videos on doing things. Those people may say something political that you may identify with or you receive your information with, and that forms your public opinion, your ideology. All right, let's get back. I clicked the wrong things. All right. Now, political knowledge. It's reciprocal, how you understand or receive information from others. Most Americans have low civic knowledge on how their local government and organizations work, how state and federal government and different organizations work. Uh, Political knowledge, depending on the gender. Men have more knowledge of how politics works compared to women. All right. And that's the end right there. And I want to make sure my screen is no longer sharing. But when it comes to public opinion and political socialization, public opinion is usually expressed 99% of the time at the polls when you go vote. But when you go into that voting booth, you're taking with you everything that you've learned from your family, friends, and your school. Everything which is based off your ethnicity, your religion, your sex, your age. Everything that you've encountered in the media of all different sorts. Everything that you've learned about politics from anyone. All of this is swirling in your head. It's who you are. And especially when you're 18, 19, 20 years old. But this ideology grows as you get older. As you join other groups, your political socialization grows. And you begin to adapt or adopt the people that you're around. And you get your more political understanding from the people you're around. As you get married, you start looking at the world differently. And your ideology or your public opinion changes. Your political socialization grows that way. You have a child, you buy a house. How you see the world then changes even more. These are events now, which our list didn't really say. As you join other groups for maybe child advocacy, or in the support or marriage, or what your religion may say, or what you believe that religion is negative or positive. This all goes into your ideology, what you are. And your political socialization is the group that you're around. And your public opinion will be shaped about that. And it's how you choose candidates or issues on the ballot. And this is what people use surveys for. Yes, you see what I did there? I went back. Because surveys use all of this from your own ideology to determine how to phrase questions, to determine how you see the world. And they throw questions out there to see how you will react or provide your opinion. Your opinion is then tabulated through research documents, through papers that political scientists like me may write, and they get a very good idea of how you think. And that is given to politicians at times, or politicians use this information. Corporate sponsors may use this information, or interest groups may use this information. And they may use this information on a way to sway you towards their opinion or how they look things, or may sway you to purchase things, or may sway you to vote a certain way. So these things matter. And the best way to overcome your ideology, your political socialization, and to determine what your public opinion should be is to always critically think. When you are faced with an issue, it could be a very challenging issue. One of the issues out there today is what recently occurred in Canada with Native schools and what may have happened to Native children back in the early 1900s. Okay, with that information alone, you may say Canada has a legacy of racism and evil. But is that the case? What is the other side of that? Yeah, we know that history, but what do Canadian citizens have done since then? What have Canadians as a group understand about that? And what have they done to mitigate that? And what are their opinions on it? We may have this fact, right? But what is the other fact? What is the other side? How people feel. And then use all this information and put it together and make an informed opinion. Don't always be accusatory. Ask questions. Get as much information as possible and make an informed decision. The issues that we're having right now in the United States among our elected officials who are being politicos, and the reason why they're politicos is because of you, our general public, because we have become very lazy in our thinking. We have a group of people right here that are so open-minded that they'll accept anything. And we have another group of people that's so closed-minded that won't accept anything. Well, let me look at both of them critically minded and see how the evidence actually work and put it together and let me decide on my own. But there's a warning with critical thinking, especially when it comes to your public opinion. You will lose friends. You will lose colleagues. You may become isolated because you do not want to buy into, and I'm going to say this way, you don't want to buy into their bullshit. And that's tough, I know. But you have to understand, in order to be above the fray, you must critically think. And that's how we're going to solve this problem with misinformation in our society. Thank you, and have a very good day.